Shortly before midnight on December 29, 1972, a brand new Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, one of the most advanced airliners ever built, disappeared into the Florida Everglades. It didn't lose an engine. It didn't hit bad weather. It didn't suffer a catastrophic failure. It crashed because every single person in the cockpit stopped looking out the window, and nobody noticed the plane was descending until it was 10 seconds too late. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 departs John F. Kennedy International Airport at 9:20 in the evening on December 29, 1972, bound for Miami. On board are 163 passengers and 13 crew. The aircraft is a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, registration N310EA, delivered to Eastern just 4 months earlier. It is essentially brand new. In command is Captain Robert Loft, 55 years old, with 29,700 flight hours and 32 years at Eastern Airlines. Beside him is First Officer Albert Stockstill. Below in the avionics bay, Flight Engineer Donald Repo monitors the aircraft systems. Between the three of them, they have decades of experience. The flight to Miami is completely routine, until it isn't. At 11:32 p.m., as Flight 401 begins its approach into Miami, First Officer Stockstill lowers the landing gear. He waits for the green confirmation light, the indicator that tells the crew the nose gear is locked down and ready for landing. The light doesn't come on. The crew cycles the gear up and back down again. Still no green light. Captain Loft contacts Miami Approach Control, tells them they need to hold, and requests a holding pattern over the Everglades while they troubleshoot. The controller clears them to 2,000 feet. What nobody knows yet, the landing gear is perfectly fine. The bulb in the indicator light has simply burned out. With the aircraft holding at 2,000 feet on autopilot, the entire crew turns their attention to the indicator light. Captain Loft and First Officer Stockstill work on removing the light assembly from the panel. Flight Engineer Repo climbs down into the avionics bay beneath the cockpit to look through a small porthole and visually confirm whether the nose gear is actually down. Nobody is watching the instruments. Nobody is flying the plane. The autopilot is handling everything, or so they believe. 50 seconds after reaching their assigned altitude, a slight accidental bump of the control yoke, probably as Loft turned to speak to Repo, switches the autopilot from altitude hold mode to control wheel steering mode. In this mode, the autopilot no longer holds altitude. The aircraft begins an imperceptible descent, so gradual, so slow, that nobody in the cockpit can feel it. Outside, there is nothing to see. The Everglades at midnight is absolute darkness. No ground lights, no visual reference, nothing. The plane is descending. Nobody knows. As the aircraft drops 250 feet below its assigned altitude, an automated C-chord chime sounds, the altitude deviation warning. But the chime sounds from a speaker located at the flight engineer's workstation. Repo is in the avionics bay below. His seat is empty. The chime goes unheard. The aircraft continues descending. The crew continues troubleshooting the light bulb. At 11:42 p.m., First Officer Stockstill begins a turn. He glances at the altimeter. Something is wrong. We did something to the altitude. What? We're still at 2,000 feet, right? Hey, what's happening here? Less than 10 seconds later, at 227 miles per hour, the left wingtip of Eastern Airlines Flight 401 touches the sawgrass of the Florida Everglades. The aircraft breaks apart across 1,600 feet of dark swamp. The first people on scene are not emergency responders. They are local airboat pilot Robert Marquis and his companion, who were out frog gigging when they witnessed the impact. Marquis drives his airboat directly into the burning wreckage, suffering burns to his face and arms, and begins pulling survivors from the water and sawgrass. He will continue through the night and into the next day. The Everglades paradoxically saves lives. The soft, muddy ground absorbs much of the impact energy. The shallow swamp water covers the wounds of survivors, slowing blood loss. Of the 176 people on board, 75 survive. The NTSB investigation is swift and conclusive. The landing gear was never the problem. The bulb was burned out, nothing more. The cause of the crash was the failure of the entire flight crew to monitor the instruments during the final 4 minutes of flight while distracted by a malfunctioning indicator light. In response, airlines around the world introduced crew resource management training, a system that ensures one pilot is always monitoring the aircraft while another handles problems. Every commercial pilot in the world trains on it today. Every flight you take is safer because of a burned-out light bulb on a December night in 1972.